and then turn things over to our presenter. SCC recognizes that institutions and academic sustainability leaders are seeking a responsive and cohesive entity to address the curriculum and professional development needs of a dynamic, diverse, and intellectually rich community that's being called to step up for the greater global good. At SCC, we envision a consortium that builds our collective capacity as educators and change agents to improve the perception, modeling, and teaching of sustainability, and serves as a generator of principles, practices, and shared resources, and thus moves the education aspect of higher education sustainability up to and beyond campus operations. At the end of today's webinar, I'll also share with you a couple of details about upcoming SCC activities, which will include an invitation for you, our colleagues, to get involved. And then next, I will introduce our presenter. We're very pleased to have Dr. Debra Rowe with us today. Dr. Debra Rowe is the president of the U.S. Partnership for Education for Sustainable Development, which convenes members of the business, education, communities, government, and faith sectors, and catalyzes national sustainability initiatives. Dr. Rowe is co-founder of the Higher Education Association's Sustainability Consortium, or HEASC. She is the founder and facilitator of the Disciplinary Association's Network for Sustainability, or DANS. And she's the Senior Fellow at Second Nature and Senior Advisor to the Association for Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, or AAC. She helps the private sector catalyze successful business models for the triple bottom line of sustainability. She helps higher education and K-12 associations integrate sustainability into mission, curricula, purchasing, facilities, and other areas. Dr. Rowe is a staff consultant for a U.S. Department of Education project entitled Sustainability Improves Students' Learning. Debra has been professor of energy management and renewable energy for over 30 years at Oakland Community College. She created a National Model Energy Services Technician degree design for colleges. She helps schools create energy management, renewable energies, and sustainability programs with the U.S. National Science Foundation support. Dr. Rowe chairs the Technical Advisory Group and the Green Jobs Policy Community of Action for the American Association of Community Colleges. With AAC, she is a U.S. designee to the World Federation of Colleges and Polytechnics for their International Sustainability Group. Debra Rowe is a frequent keynote speaker and author or editor of numerous publications. She earned a PhD in business, MA in psychology, and MBA in business from the University of Michigan, and a BA from Yale University. So welcome, Dr. Debra Rowe. We're so pleased to have you with us today.
Thank you. I am really pleased to be here. I really just want to thank Jess and Ira for what they do. We need much more of this kind of gathering, coming together, learning about how to get sustainability in the curricula and then out into the world. And so thank you for all of your efforts. So I'm going to show my screen now, and we are going to get started. I also want to thank all of you who are here. I bet there's a bunch of you that I know. I can't see the attendees list, but I'm just really glad that we're all here today focusing on this. So let me move this box out of the way, and we'll get started. I'm really excited about telling you about a new initiative that we have. I think it's going to be extremely useful to you and to the world, and the problems that we are facing and the solutions we need to create. So a couple of things. Thank you for that very nice introduction. I'm no longer senior advisor at Second Nature. Did that for a number of years, and I do still enjoy teaching at University of Vermont. I focus on campus sustainability, but I've done both corporate and campus sustainability. So let's get going here. Today's title, as you know, is about stopping the dooming and glooming in students and engaging them in solutions. You heard a nice description of the U.S. partnership, so I'm not going to do much on this except to tell you that we followed advice that was given us by the women who organized for the UN Decade for Women, because they weren't being represented in what was being sent from the US to the UN. And we followed their advice, and the US State Department has recognized the US partnership for all the good work we did, and of course with many others who have worked hard for well over a decade on this. And so we ended up being part of the US delegation to the World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development, which has brought an international perspective to our work, but that's a topic for another time. If you are interested in being a fellow of the U.S. partnership, you can contact me. Those are not paid positions, but they are positions that help to create systemic change for a sustainable future. You've all seen the triple bottom line of sustainability. Well, I would like to show you this. This is, and many of you have seen it, but I want to make sure all of you have. These are the concentric circles that clarify that it's not just a triple bottom line of healthy ecosystems, social systems, and economies, but that in fact everything we do is within the context of the ecosystems that every day give us life-sustaining gifts that we are not monetizing, fully paying for, or coping with it fully as we damage them. So starting in the center now, okay, while the ecosystems are the context within which we do everything, in the center of these circles is our knowledge and our skills, and I would also say our values, where we sit in terms of caring about human suffering and the suffering and existence of other species. By applying our knowledge and our skills and our values, we can create two changes that are necessary. These two changes are in red. One is on the bottom, our private choices and behaviors. We need to do individual changes so that we can live more sustainably and be less damaging. A lot of people are doing that already. But what we're not getting to are these public choices and behaviors. We need more policies, organizational policies, governmental policies. And for those of you who hate having policies, I'm not talking about more. Let's get rid of the ones that are supporting the damage of humans and the environment and replace them with policies that help us create what you see in blue. And what's in blue are the sustainable communities and sustainable economies. That's what it takes, our public choices and our private choices. And then, of course, once again, all of that is in the context of our ecosystem. So let's look at why these issues are so important. All of you know this. Look, our decisions are creating more scarcity and human suffering, or a future of greater abundance and higher quality of life for this and for future generations. And I'm not talking about just material abundance. Particularly, I'm not talking about stuff that we don't need. You know, the research literature is robust now on that having more money once you can pay your basic bills doesn't necessarily make you happier. It's the quality of your personal relationships. And so we have been really remiss at teaching some of the skills to understand and be able to move forward on a future of greater abundance and higher quality of life, with abundance being about the things that will actually bring happiness. Education for sustainable development. This is, I like this particular definition. It came really off of a brochure for a United Nations Summit on Education for Sustainable Development, but I use it often. It enables people to develop the knowledge, values, and skills to participate in decisions that will improve quality of life now without damaging the planet for the future. If you are at an institution where people are arguing about what the definition should be for sustainable development or education for sustainable development, put all those people in a subcommittee. Put them in a subcommittee and let them work on definitions, but don't let it stop you from going forward, because when they get done with all of that, it will be very similar to those definitions that are most commonly used. I think the piece on the bottom is quite important. You may be at institutions where there's a certain lack of understanding or even politicization of the phrase sustainable development. And while you educate people so that that polarization can decrease, you can also just look at the skills needed for sustainable development and make an argument that they're the same skills that employers value. Krista and I did a chapter in a book about that that you see cited there. We have a new and free initiative for educators. This is what I want to focus on today. It's called Beyond Doom and Gloom, Including Solutions to Climate Change. And in fact, we're tweaking the title a bit between now and January when all of it kicks off. So it was originally Stop Dooming and Glooming. It was Including Solutions to a Clean Energy Future. So if you've got ideas, the audience that, please send them my way. The audience that we are reaching out to with this initiative are, of course, the educators who are already sustainability champions, but also those who are what I would call mainstream faculty who are concerned about the environment and are concerned about human suffering, but have not yet engaged. Maybe they're starting to talk about climate change just a little bit or environmental issues just a little bit in their courses. We want to include them in this initiative. And of course, we're also interested in staff who are doing co-curricular activities. So before I get into the initiative, I want to step back and go over the learning outcomes for sustainability. There's now a fairly robust international literature around what are the learning outcomes for ESD. ESD stands for Education for Sustainable Development. I'm going to be using that acronym now because it's too many syllables and we don't have enough time. I'd like to get to our conversation at the end instead. So Education for Sustainable Development, ESD. And the international literature is robust. I could have picked a number of different learning outcomes lists. They're all quite similar in terms of what they emphasize. I'm going to go with the one that really has gotten a lot of play in the United States, which was the Presidential Task Force on Sustainability out of ACPA and then went on to be published internationally. Here are the learning outcomes that they came up with. First of all, students should be able to define it. Secondly, they should understand how their actions impact issues of sustainability to be able to relate it to their lives and their values. And to be able to change their daily habits and consumer mentality. So that's, you know, the story of stuff, story of cosmetics, the life cycle, understanding all of the impacts when you consume something on yourself, on the workers who made it, and on the environment, and on others who use it as well. So that's the individual change. How do we change what we consume? But then it goes on from there. Students need to be able to think in terms of systems and how systems are interrelated, economic systems, social systems. So I am hearing extra noise. I don't know if it's Jess or Ira, but maybe if you guys want to mute yourself, because I'm getting it in my earphones. That means others might be too. Thank you. So the systems thinking is really important, and I have found that students aren't necessarily that good at it. And lots of times faculty need practice because we tend to be in our disciplinary silos. So I do think this is an important one to emphasize. The fifth learning activity is that students need to learn how to be change agents. Because if all we do is teach them about the issues and don't teach them how to make change, it is very hard on students. I'll get into that more later. And of course, we don't get to a sustainable future. So students need to not only learn how to be change agents, but how to apply the solutions for sustainability to their campuses and their communities. So they need to be able to engage in solution building. And they need to practice that while they're at school, because otherwise they get out and they practice it. It doesn't work because they're new at it, and then they shut down and can oftentimes turn into early cynics. And that's the last thing we want to be graduating, is young people turning into cynics and shutting down. So they need to learn how to apply it locally, but they also need to understand how to apply concepts of sustainability globally, and to be connected to challenges and issues that affect not just their family and friends, and not just our country, but also people around the globe, because the globe's not going away, and we have the opportunity to create solutions that work across the globe. So these outcomes, these 7, match international declarations, other countries' learning outcomes, and I give you a citation there. You can pull from there. There's been a lot of other articles. If you need a list, if you can't find it in a lit review, let me know. I'll help you. So there's a list of change agent skills that ACPA has. You have the link there at the bottom. And we're looking at students, staff, and community members all learning not just how to, but choosing to become more environmentally, socially, and economically responsible. And not just at work, and not just as a personal citizen, but also in how we interact with our government. All of you who are educators have met students by now who say, you know, government is evil and we should do away with it, and this simplistic thinking that is vitriolic is not productive. So we need to dig into those conversations and help our students see that they can make a difference, the ways they can make a difference with our local, regional, and national governments, so that we can all get the kind of government that we prefer. And I know we still have to find common ground on that, but I think that's part of our good work over the next few years. I could go into that more on another webinar, but I'm going to continue with this. So an essential instructional approach to help students become effective change agents is to give them opportunities to do real-world problem solving for sustainability. That means engaging with the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce and the nonprofits and the K-12 system and the business community, and so that you can have real-world problem-solving projects, as well as national and international groups, so that students can become engaged as effective change agents. Oops, there's that loud sound again I just heard. Like somebody breathing in.
Everyone is muted, so I would just say we have to do our best to ignore whatever that may be.
Okay, great. All right. So if it only comes every once in a while, so we'll just let that go. There's a change agent skills list again, along with other resources, as a personal focus for students, also a professional focus. And I would say there's a lot of faculty who we need to do our own work on this. We're good at analyzing, we're not necessarily good at understanding change and change management. And if we're going to help our students be change agents, then we need to learn more about it ourselves. We have had as a theme in our national networks, and you've seen it show up in many different places, we're not the only creator of it, the theme that the campus and the community should be a living lab for sustainability. And I would strongly recommend that we continue to open up our projects and what we're doing to the public, share with them the stories, engage them in solutions, and to use the media to tell our stories. When we started on our work internationally, we were amazed at how many people around the world, as well as nationally, didn't know all of the great work going on in sustainability on campuses across the country, particularly if they weren't already connected to AAC. So this has become a norm. This campus and community is a living lab. But we also have to catalyze what's been going on with all this movement, from apathy, fearful, and obedient attitudes to students, graduates, faculty, and staff caring and being effectively involved. I would also argue that since many of the employer surveys asking for what they want in graduates so that they can hire them and promote them say we need people who have team skills, we also need to put more emphasis on this emotional and interpersonal intelligence and civil discourse and productive workplace efforts. So I almost took this slide out. Some of the slides I'm using today were used a few weeks ago at a conference in China where they are committed in higher ed to doing applied learning and just learning more about what that is, real world problem solving. And also they have hundreds of colleges and universities that are digging into the green and sustainability space. I thought it was worth leaving in just to review real quick that you got to involve students in applied learning to a solution, to create a solution to a problem that addresses a genuine need. The phrase real world problem solving really grabs a lot of students, and that they have to practice the skills to be change agents. We've already reviewed that. You can't just tell them what it is and expect them to be that way. Students need to be able to make connections. We still teach too many disciplinary specific courses and then say to students, but you know, the sustainability issues are interdisciplinary, so think in an interdisciplinary way and act that way. But we don't give them those interdisciplinary assignments. At many institutions, although that is changing, and we've been glad to see that as we do professional development with different campuses. A lot of the solution building for our sustainability issues can't be handled in a 15-week semester. So we found that it's important to have multi-semester projects, what we call legacy projects, so that students can do a part of the solution building and pass it off to the next semester of students. We've had a lot of success with that. There are many other models for effective real-world problem-solving applied learning. This also came from the speech that I gave to China, but I thought it was worth mentioning quickly that these things we've been talking about so far truly are established in higher education. This is no longer an emerging national trend. These are national trends. And China was very interested, by the way, in what we have been doing with this. So every time I do professional development at a college or a university, I make sure that in the room, if you look at the second to the last bullet, are your community stakeholders, your businesses, government, nonprofits, as well as the operations side on the campus, so that the faculty can walk out with partners who will work with them on real-world projects. I didn't give the whole list, but it gives you an idea. National networks have been supporting this, and I'm going to talk about those in just a second because they helped us create this initiative. But today my focus is on this new and free initiative for educators called Beyond Doom and Gloom, including solutions to climate change. This initiative is designed by the Disciplinary Associations Network for Sustainability and in collaboration with the Higher Education Association's Sustainability Consortium. These two networks include over 60 national higher ed associations. They've been around a very long time. They are mainstream higher ed, and here's some examples. DANS, the Disciplinary Associations Network. I couldn't write out all of the titles because I couldn't fit it all on the page, but it's like the American Society for Engineering Education, it's the Accreditation Agency for Business Schools, AACSB, the American Mathematical Association, the American Sociological Association, you get the idea. It's all of these disciplines, plus more, all working together on integrating sustainability into the classroom. The reason why this is important is because if you have faculty who are hesitating to teach about sustainability, you can go to them and say, you know, your professional society is focusing on integrating sustainability into what is taught in our discipline. And that creates more willingness for faculty to engage. That's DANS. It's over 10 years old. It's got a bit messy, but a very interesting resources page. We do have new websites coming up on this very soon, but the material's there, you can go look. The other national network we work with is a network that covers well over half of all the college and university presidents, academic officers, as well as the national associations for numbers 3 and 7 that you see there. And it's called HEASC. This is the group that said we should use the campus and the community as a living lab. And there are a lot of resources there as well. Both DANS and HEASC also have fellows if you're interested, once again, in contributing on a national level. But now let me talk about the initiative. This is one of the highest priority initiatives coming out of Dan's and He Ask. It came out of conversations that we had with Dan's members when I was in DC visiting with them in the spring. Here's what we found out. We found out that more and more students are learning about climate change and all of the bad news that comes with it. They're well aware that this world that we're living in, but is going to be their life moving forward, is going to be disrupted in crucial ways. You see the list there, and that's not the complete list. So it's lots of bad news. But then when I asked the academic societies, so who's getting them involved in solutions, I got a bit of silence. And what I heard was, well, our biologists and our ecologists and our others, our engineers, we know enough to teach about climate change. But we're not energy specialists. We're not climate change solutions specialists. So we tend to just talk about climate change. And I thought, well, no wonder I keep hearing about all these undergraduates who get out and are feeling frustrated, worried, confused, disempowered about what next steps to take, feeling like they can't make a difference or trying to make a difference and not being successful and turning into early cynics. This is a dangerous situation and we need to change it. That's what this initiative is about, because we cannot afford to graduate students who are feeling this way, who then drop out of being part of the solutions or only make individual change. We need systemic thinkers and actors to help us bring our society forward to where we need to be to address climate change effectively. Our education often doesn't include how to help reduce the damage to the people as well as to the environment. And sometimes they'll hear about opportunities for involvement like individual choices, or they'll see the student groups like 350.org. I have great respect for Bill McKibben's work, but it's not enough of a set of choices for people. We aren't going to get to a sustainable future with just that. So, this initiative's materials and assignments can be easily inserted into courses and help students understand how they might participate in some of the possible solutions. And we have started with the policies needed to transition to a clean energy future. Happens to be an area of expertise for me. One of the things they didn't say in the intro is I did win an award at MIT from the U.S. Department of Energy on empowering women in clean energy, and I have been in this field for 37 years. So I'm well aware of the fact that the policies we need to create a sustainable energy future are not happening at the state and federal levels, and in fact are being fought by some special interests who just are looking at making profits for their companies or holding on to the power that they've traditionally had as regulated monopoly utilities who are responsible fiscally to their shareholders to make a profit. So we have a webinar for you. This webinar will be at the end of February, beginning of March. It's already been supported and will be distributed out by multiple academic societies, and we're very excited about that. So you've got engineers, biologists, ecologists, social scientists, their professional societies say, come and listen to this webinar. I encourage you to read this description and see if it appeals to not only the sustainability champions, the climate change champions, but also those who are vaguely worried about this but haven't engaged yet, because we want to reach out to them as well. So I will quickly read it, think about it, put in the chat box or send me emails at the end your thoughts about how we should put this out into the academic world. Reducing the negative impacts of climate change will also decrease human suffering. Many faculty and students recognize the importance of climate change, yet don't know how to help reduce its damage to people and the environment. Are you or your students worried about the impacts of climate change and not sure what to do? This webinar focuses on expert curricular materials to engage students in current and future solutions that can be used in any course, even those without a focus on environmental or sustainability issues. Join us to see how you can be part of reducing doom and gloom and share opportunities for progress. So we could be more specific about the kinds of solutions, transition to a clean energy economy. So we're still working on this definition. You tell me, as you look at your colleagues who are not yet sustainability champions, what you think would appeal. But here are the clean energy essential facts that we will be sharing. And understand that we have a toolkit for faculty to easily insert into their work in a class. It consists of a video, a great video, that's really compelling to undergraduates. I'm sorry, but we are clear that students don't read as much as they should. So we have a compelling video, and the video takes them right to be part of systemic change and help us create better energy policies at the state and federal level. Part of this work actually was because so many of us were testifying at the state level to try and hold off bad energy policies that are destroying our energy efficiency, solar and wind industries. And we thought, where are the students? Where are they at these hearings? Where are they in the state legislature to say this is our future and we want better energy policies? So that was part of the motivation as well here. Here's what we know. The facts are, and this is a National Renewable Energy Lab analysis, but there are others that support this as well, of course. We have the technology to supply 80% of the electricity needs of the U.S. with renewable energies and energy efficiency. We can ramp up to this 80% clean electricity instead of today's 15%. We already have the technologies that pay for themselves and provide lower cost, green energy and greener transportation. And for those of you who aren't experts and you need to see more, I have more resources here for you to read, but also before I came to the college, I owned a solar energy company that also did wind and energy efficiency. And so I have followed and have known these technologies for 37 years. It's not just based on studies, it's based on real world implementation and documentation of what's working, that we already have technologies that pay for themselves and provide this green energy and engagement in policies. This is crucial. So right now, policies about our energy future are being made at the state and federal levels. In fact, I had to get off of a call about what's going on in Michigan, where I've been working a lot, but I work in multiple states on energy policy to do this webinar for you today. And there's only a couple of students involved in that. There should be many more. Many policymakers don't understand the climate change and energy policy connections. They just listen to the monopoly utilities and believe what they hear. Too many are supporting damaging policies that favor fossil fuels, that all of the above strategy, which really doesn't work if you're trying to do climate change solutions, and prevent the possible growth of renewable energies. Students need to show up. They need to express their desire for policies to support a rapid shift, not a slow shift, to a clean energy future. We have lots of stories of students who have made a difference when they got involved. I have many hundreds at this point. Student called a staffer at a representative or senator's office, shared information, and then that person, elected representative, went in and changed the policy under consideration before the vote. I just saw it happen in the last few weeks here in Michigan. So we have a slide. This is something you may want to write down, bit.ly/climate policy solutions. That gives you the connections to the organizations that are working on these better energy policies in solar, wind, beyond natural gas, because there are many issues with using natural gas that we need to get beyond it and to the renewables and the energy efficiency, and then also a national policy that fixes our economic structure for a clean energy future. I actually put the slides up here for you so that you can see it's from the Solar Energy Industry Association, American Wind Energy Association. I looked for a non-environmental group that was doing great work on the fracking issues, but I really liked what Sierra Club was doing, so included those. And they've been instrumental, by the way, at shutting down a bunch of the most polluting plants in this country. So if people haven't looked at that yet, they should. And then Citizens Climate Lobby, which is about putting a price on carbon in a bipartisan way. They have a bipartisan caucus at the federal level, some very exciting work going on there, even with today's political climate. So there's once again the slide. You can start using that right now, and I encourage you to do so. We find that students feel a lot less worried, frustrated, disempowered, and cynical when they can be part of groups that are making positive change. If you go to that bit.ly, it gives you this whole slide. So please share the webinar announcement and webpage. In January it'll be out. Plan to share it with your colleagues during every way you can think of. While I have you today, I want to just give you a few other resources for you to consider. The Sustainability Literacy Test is now in version 2 at over 50 countries and 8 languages. We're very excited about how the questions now focus on not just the doom and gloom, but on potential solutions for a sustainable future and even on change agent skills. So it's free for and so please go ahead, take a look at it, sign up, create a test for one, and test it out. And I hope that you'll use it and give us feedback so that we can continue to use this as a benchmark to raise the quality of sustainability education in the U.S. and around the world. I'm not going to spend much time today going into professional development as a resource. I think that this group that's hosting this webinar has got some great opportunities for you to work with them on professional development. I've done professional development at well over 100 colleges and universities, but whoever does it for you, you should look at them doing 3 things. Number 1, get a lot of faculty from different disciplines into the room and show them how very quickly there's an interactive exercise that Jean McGregor did out of Evergreen that we use all the time. Very quickly, they can add sustainability into their course, and it overcomes all of those, oh, I have too much content, I don't have room to teach this, so they walk out with learning activities. Secondly, they walk out with a vision of how to make it a theme in their course. Any course, intro to psychology, intro to biology, an advanced course, any course, doesn't have to be a sustainability course. And third, that professional development should include what the institution and the surrounding community would look like if sustainability was fully integrated with plans for the systemic change that's necessary to make it happen. What we found is that if you do good professional development, it creates effective change and enjoyable positive change. If you haven't seen Sustainability Improves Student Learning, go to that website. That was a great grant that we got from the U.S. Department of Education with hundreds of learning activities, a beginner's handbook for educators. Why should I include this with all of the other reasons than the ones that you and I already know? And more. There's the link. Here are the groups that we worked with. It was STEM oriented, but it's open to all disciplines. And you can see we worked with AAC and U, and that was Dan's who really spent a lot of time on that. And if you haven't seen the American Association of Community Colleges Seed Center, whether you're a community college or not, make sure you go visit the seedcenter.org. Take a look at their Green Genome Initiative. I'm a real fan of STARS. I like to supplement it with this green institutional self-assessment. Remember, it's just green, not so much on this social wellness side. And so you need to make sure that gets included as well. We have some new resources coming out for you on that. And of course, you can look at STARS. This is the home page for SEED. I just want to tell you that on the left-hand side here, near the bottom, you see where it says Resource Center in green? And then you have solar, wind, green building, energy efficiency, etc. You open up any one of those. This is the area of the website that I have worked with leaders across the country to populate. You'll find materials for curricula, partnership examples of real-world problem-solving, competencies, skill sets, employer projections, much more. So take a look at the Resource Center, and as you can see, we've got a climate resiliency guide, which is helpful as well. Here's a couple of others. This is an encyclopedia. Now, I will tell you that I am the editor, but I make no money if you buy it. Okay, I made some money when I helped to edit it, but that's done now. The reason I like it is because we pulled in experts from all over to write the different sections, literally from around the world. And once your library buys one copy, you have free endless downloads for your students. It's a great way to integrate sustainability and all of its topics into your classroom. If you still have deniers, which I assume you do, skepticalscience.com is still a great website to address climate change denial. And Dan's, and he asked, has, in working with one of our fellows from the MIT Energy Lab, created a call to energy literacy. I am amazed at how much our society still doesn't know and the misinformation they've been fed that they believe about energy. And so there's some key resources there for you. And a lot of institutions are worried about what about jobs now. So I wrote with some colleagues an article that was at the front page of the Career Advisors magazine for the National Association for Career Advisors for Higher Ed. And the link is there. It includes a Google Doc that has over 60 websites of job listings for sustainability, and also just some approaches to how you take sustainability into any job. So look, I'm going to finish with this, and then I hope you will ask questions, and we will form a learning community that continues past this webinar. I know that everybody has resistance to change. Look, so do I. When somebody asks me to change something in my classroom, it's work. But what we're giving you to include from this Beyond Dooming and Glooming, this is just very easy. It's just a video. There's some test questions if you want to include them, and there's a little reflection exercise. That's it. So the impacts are going to be very powerful and positive, and I have two very specific asks from what we're doing today with you. Number one, share this Stop Doom and Gloom webinar announcement and initiative announcement that's going to be formally coming out in January. Start thinking about how you're going to disseminate it out, and don't just send it out in an email once. Talk to people about it. And then secondly, use that bit.ly slide and the other resources we talked about today, the SULI test and others, to enhance the already good work that you're doing on sustainability. We can choose a sustainable future. And we have to take care of ourselves and be open-hearted to others, using our knowledge to make sure we don't shut down in these challenging times, and that we more than ever commit to creating a more sustainable future for all. There's one of my Gmails. It's a good one to use if you want to get a hold of me. That's all one word, educating for a sustainable future. And Ira, I'm done and open to questions.
Thank you, Deborah. We are going to use the chat box primarily for fielding questions. Jess Garrier and I are screening questions as they come in. For those who've been asking, yes, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted for people to take a closer look at all of the great information and insights that Deborah has shared. I know there are a lot of URLs and links and names of initiatives that you may not have caught the first time through, and all of this will be posted on the SCC YouTube channel, and we'll have a link on the SCC website as well. Jess, why don't you start off with the question that you had in the chat box, and we have some other questions coming in that I'll screen while Jess is asking her question.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Ira, and thank you, Deb. This has been a really great presentation so far. And I want to reiterate, as Ira have said, that we will use the chat box, and it's very encouraging to see those questions coming in, so keep doing that. So Deb, my question for you is, earlier in the presentation you emphasized and provided some really good reasons for students to engage in policy, and demonstrating through your work and others' work that when students engage, there are many indicators that it is successful to do so in making real change in the world. My question for you is, how can faculty support students to be able to do this, to engage in policy, given the political hazards, if we can call them that many faculty perceive both at their institution level and at higher levels? And a related question is, how can interdisciplinary collaboration maybe play into that challenge?
Oh, those are great questions. So the first one, which is, how dare we do anything that has to do with politics? I think the straight answer is this, and I really get this from Yolanda Moses, who used to be the head of AAHE and a sustainability champion who was on the board at AAC. And she said to me that the phrase social justice, when people talk about sustainability and they talk about social justice, that part of our population loves that phrase. And to us, it means a lot of really important and wonderful things. But there's another part of our population, and I can understand their worldview and perspective, and there are some common ground areas that I think we could all benefit from identifying, that they use different language or language differently, and that when they talk about social justice, to them it means increasing people's dependency on government and disempowering them. So the phrase actually means different things to different groups, and I think we first need to understand that difference in language. I could have given you everything I said today sounding like a Tea Party person, sounding like a conservative, a libertarian, a fiscal emphasis conservative, as well as or a Democrat or a progressive. It's really quite interesting how nonpartisan this work is once you understand the different language. But what Yolanda said that I think is even more important is, because there's that confusion around some of these phrases, where some people would talk about the social justice circle of sustainability, she would talk about it as preparing people to participate in democracy. Look, we have a democracy here, and what that means is people need to and can weigh in and use their knowledge to inform their elected representatives. So, civic engagement exercises in courses where students are asked to use your knowledge to communicate with your elected representative. You do not give students here's what you have to say. You just create a line of communication for them to practice participating in democracy. Civic engagement is part of the mission of higher education. It's about preparing people for jobs, but it's also, and enhancing their personal lives, but it's also about creating a better world. So I wouldn't call it advocacy, because there's all sorts of different feelings about that. I actually would call it participating in democracy and civic engagement opportunities. And we've found that even in places where there is a lot of polarization around this, that those are useful terms that make it safer to do this work. The second piece, the interdisciplinary piece, we have a project I started out doing decades ago. We did it for 7 years, then we wrote it up and shared it with others. What we found is that there's a lot of faculty who don't want to change what they're doing in their classroom, and they need to be nurtured personally to help them to shift their work to include real-world problem solving, change agent skill development. But in the meantime, they can be part of an interdisciplinary project. And so what we found is if you have classes that are scheduled at the same time, and you can add a half an hour or 45 minutes to an hour is preferable, and put a note in the schedule that it's for a group project. And then we would put, about 12 students together from 4 different disciplines. It could be any discipline. We did English and psychology and political science and economics, and we did technology, and we did biology. You could do any combination, chemistry. And what they did is they created a positive scenario for the future of society. Now, I will tell you that in 7 years of our doing this work, we were shocked that even though we would have about 12 different groups of 12 each time we ran this interdisciplinary project, and we did it for 7 years, that all the scenarios for the future of society looked the same. So try it out and see. And we didn't even give them ground rules that it had to be inclusive. So have them write a positive scenario for the future of society, and then they tell the story of how they got from today's society to this positive future using discipline concepts. So economics or psychology, whatever class they're in. And they have to teach those concepts to each other. So I have this all written up. I'm glad to share it. It's one of the earlier articles I did. But it's a real easy way for students to experience interdisciplinary problem solving and present their scenarios. We also coupled it with a positive futures fair, where students would find organizations doing this kind of work and have them come in and talk about volunteer and career opportunities. And oftentimes that was very transformational for students to see, oh, I could have a career and help create a sustainable future. So Ira or Jess, were there other questions that you wanted me to address?
Yes, I was just screening the last few that came through, Deborah. A couple to group together here. Giovanni is asking, can you say more about employment for sustainability graduates? What jobs can they do? And somewhat related to that is Lisa asking, could you be more specific about where the sustainability job listings you mentioned can be found?
Okay. So our Google Doc is at tinyurl.com/green and sustainability jobs. It's either green and sustainability jobs or sustainability and green jobs. It's one or the other. But honestly, if you even look at Indeed or LinkedIn jobs or any of the others and just screen for sustainability, I do a filter and I look at DC jobs and I look at Michigan jobs, you know, the 2 places where I spend my most time. There's new job postings every single day. But I do think that that Google Doc will be helpful to a lot of people because it expands their horizon of understanding all the different places where sustainability has made it into the world of work. The other thing I would suggest is stop looking for a job that has sustainable development in the title, and instead bring your knowledge of sustainability to whatever job you do. Anytime that you have to make decisions about how resources are used or weigh in on decisions, make decisions about how other people are treated or groups of people, you have the opportunity to apply sustainability. And also, there are a lot of people who are turned off to the world of business because they think that they don't care about sustainability, when a lot of businesses have been leaders in this. Or they're turned off to the world of nonprofits because they think they won't make enough money, and that means they don't understand the world of nonprofits and the opportunities that are in there. So those are some hints for you, and the link on the slide takes you directly to the article, but at least now you've got that Google Doc.
I've got a couple more that I want to ask you before we start to wrap, Deborah. Another Deborah asks if you can please share more about the practical inclusion of systems thinking within Gloom and Doom materials.
Right. So much of the work that's been out there about what do we do about climate change talks about individual lifestyle change. And so in this initiative, we, in the script for the video and in the supplementary materials, we're educating students about the crucial role of energy policy to either be spewing more climate change pollution into the atmosphere, which will further destabilize our climate and give us all those negative impacts that we saw, or that will reduce that and help to reduce the negative impacts as well. So getting students to see themselves as change agents to change systems. Every time you change an energy policy, you're helping to change a system. We don't spend a lot of time talking about systems thinking because I need to keep our students engaged and willing to go ahead and join an organization to learn about civic engagement opportunities for better energy policies. And I don't want them off in some abstract conversation or readings around systems thinking. But of course, that could be supplemented by any instructor who understands this and can look at the rich literature from Donella Meadows on and before on how do you create systems change.
So another question that was raised, Deborah, is ripped from the headlines. The Army Corps of Engineers just denied the permit, but the oil company says it's going to drill anyway and just pay a fine. How are we supposed to combat this sort of lawlessness?
Well, give me a moment to be nauseous because I hadn't heard about they're going to do that anyway. That just must have happened in the last few hours. I really have appreciated the comparison of what's been going on with the fossil fuel industry and what they've done to what the tobacco industry did. I think that the stories have similarities. It's important for students to understand the levels of change that's needed so that they know what to ask for. And so I'm sorry to hear about that decision by the oil companies, especially when we already have cost-effective energy efficiency and renewable energies. And we have examples in other countries where they've already done it. You know, one of the things I get as an international keynote speaker is I will go and tell them what's going on in the U.S. with education for sustainable development. And in the third and fourth comment that I get after the speech, they'll say, thank you, it's so good to hear about these things going on in the U.S. that we did not know about. But the first and second question has always been, what's the matter with you people in the United States that you're still denying climate change? Like, really, what's wrong there? And don't you realize? Now, I will tell you that we're not the only ones that are fighting this fight. I had a delegation of people from China that I met with recently, and they said that they also have powerful business forces in fossil fuels that are putting out misinformation and that are fighting the transition to a clean energy future, and that it's harder for people in China to stand up and say these are immoral acts because it's going to increase human suffering and cause more deaths. But this kind of struggle is going on all around the world, and what I've been most excited about is when students actually make phone calls to their elected representatives and share information about the potentials for renewable energies and energy efficiency, and they help educate people making decisions so that we can move, which we have to do much more quickly, to a clean energy future. Part of this as a change agent is knowing how to manage your own emotional roller coaster around this, how to not let discouragement and grief get in the way, but to find leverage points for change, build those coalitions of support, and go out there with resilience, your own personal resilience, to continue to push for what we need.
Debra, that's a great message to begin to wrap up, and I'm going to shift the presenter role back over to Jess and see if she has further questions or comments, and if not, we'll start to wrap up.
Hi, Jess, are you there? And thank you, Ira. This has been really fun to share.
It has been great, and there's been tremendous positive feedback in the chat box, positive feedback without questions. So I just wanted to pass that along to you before we do our own debrief. Jess, are you ready to close out?
Right. Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Yes, I agree. I had a couple of backup questions for you, Debra, but you were able to very clearly and succinctly include some of the answers to my questions in your presentation at the end here. So thank you. I wanted to briefly mention a couple of opportunities I alluded to at the beginning of our presentation. One is that Sustainability Curriculum Consortium will be offering a spring activity we're putting that planning committee together right now. If you have questions about what is being planned and ways for you to become involved in the planning of that, please do follow up with us after the webinar. I would also encourage you to sign up for the monthly updates for Sustainability Curriculum Consortium, which you can do through our website, curriculumforsustainability.org, and that will contain a bit more detail about what we have in mind and what those opportunities are for faculty and others involved in sustainability education. The other thing that I'll mention is we have another webinar coming up very shortly. On December 12th, we'll have a webinar with Krista Heiser, and this is about creating coherence. It's going to be the first in a series of 3 webinars, we believe, and there are more details about that also in the SCC monthly updates. And that SCC has completed a strategic planning process throughout the better part of this summer and fall, and as a result of that are preparing to provide support in the way of resources and advice and collective wisdom to those institutions who are at various stages of implementing interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary sustainability curricula and developing professional development opportunities for their faculty and others. And so you want to keep on top of other news to come from sustainability curriculum, and as always, get in touch with us by email or through the website. I'll also mention that this webinar, whether you're just joining us at the tail end or have gotten an invitation from a colleague to join one of our webinars, will be added to our YouTube channel along with our previous offerings. And so that's another great place to look for us and follow up there as well. Ira, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, I think it covers it. On your very first point, Jess, to be clear, we're planning an event for which we will soon announce the date and location, but late spring, and intended as a gathering primarily for teaching faculty. And we will focus on specific themes across our pedagogy, content, and leadership prongs that make up the structure of the Sustainability Curriculum Consortium. And that is the activity for which Jess said, if you have an interest in that faculty-focused activity, please be in touch with us and join our planning committee. With that, once again, we are very grateful to Debra who certainly is one of the most widely recognized and respected leaders in the sustainability and higher education space. Thank you, Debra, for agreeing to come on today and share your perspectives at this juncture, particularly as we move into the change in administrations, and for us as we move to the next phases of implementing the Sustainability Curriculum Consortium. Many thanks, Debra.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody who's working so hard. We have leaders all over this country, and I want to acknowledge your good work. And thanks, Ira, because you really nudged me to do this today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.